Welcome to the 7 Pillar Podcast with Nick Ahmed and Mike Ahmed. We are brothers and former pro athletes who are now on mission to help athletes and coaches grow their mindset, expand their leadership, and elevate their performance.
Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The truth is that transforming your life begins with transforming your mind. This podcast is built for athletes, coaches, competitors, and leaders who refuse to settle for average, who are ready to live with purpose, build a legacy, and defy the odds. Here, we talk about what it actually takes to live and perform on a higher plane, building your foundation on God and His truth, developing elite standards and eternal perspectives, and becoming fearless in the face of adversity. Because no one hands you a life worth living. You have to build it yourself. And it starts right now. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the 7 Pillar Podcast with Nick Ahmed and Mike Ahmed. We're excited to dive into episode 8 today. Our first 7 episodes, Mike, we've been talking a lot of mindset. Last one was winning the war within. We had 5 keys to an elite mindset before that. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a turn, going in a different direction. We're going to talk all about leadership. And leadership's a theme we're going to talk about often here on this podcast, but today, we just kind of want to tee it up. We want to talk about what leadership is not and then what leadership actually is, define it at a high level, and then help all of you guys take the next step in your leadership. And before we do that, Mike, we obviously are brothers. We had the opportunity to play together in high school, played high school baseball together for 2 years. Just thinking back to that time with me being 2 years older, you coming up a little bit behind me, what would you say I did well and not did well? What did you learn from me in the way that I kind of handled that leadership role as, you know, the senior, the captain on that team, and kind of leading you and your group of classmates that year or two?
Yeah. Well, what's really cool is that we didn't start playing together until I think it was my sophomore year in high school. I think we played a little bit together when we were younger, like I was in first or second grade, something like that, and I was playing.
Yeah.
But we had that stretch of time in between where we didn't play together, and we didn't always have the best relationship, right? But like when we actually got to high school and we started playing together on the same team, I think that kind of turned around and our relationship really grew from that point on, which was really cool. I think it probably had a lot to do with your leadership and how you carried yourself and presented yourself, as an athlete and just somebody who was an older classman, upperclassman, who was kind of like, hey, you were the best player on the team, the leader, the guy that wanted it more than anybody else. So not only just like getting to play with you, practice with you day in and day out. I mean, that was really cool, but just kind of like seeing how you went about your business. There's not really like any things that jump to mind about like what you said or what you did specifically. But I just think that your overall character was a really, really, really good example for me as a sophomore in high school and somebody who aspired to play college baseball and play professional baseball, to see how somebody who was, already very good at their craft at the high school level, just somebody who was so committed to the pursuit of that and excellence in what they did. I think that was really a really good learning time moment for me, because I said, hey, now like this is actually what it takes for me to, get to the point where I want to go. And I think there's probably a lot of people that don't have that example, right? There's not too many guys, I would say, that were like you in high school that would be as committed with you and disciplined with as you, just with the little things, whether it was, baseball, basketball, getting in a weight room, just being the best that you could be. So from an example standpoint, like that was definitely something that helped me along and helped me to understand what it actually would take to get to the next level and perform well there. And then obviously we talking to the leadership part is like, okay, now how can I exemplify that to the guys below me? So as I got to be a junior and senior in high school, I could turn around and do the same thing for those guys. So I think that was pretty cool. And again, there probably wasn't one specific thing that you said or that you did that I really remember that stuck out to me, but just like how you carried yourself overall. So we did come a long way from being brothers that butted heads a lot, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade when I was there, to being, best friends that competed and played with each other every day. So it was a cool time to experience that and grow. So
Yeah. Well, bro, I appreciate you sharing that, saying that stuff. Thinking back to that time, I definitely messed plenty of things up and probably pushed you and your classmates and teammates there a little bit too hard at times. But I think what I got right from a young age was just a commitment to excellence and setting a standard and being the example. And, I may have said some things that rubbed some people the wrong way at certain times based on my intensity, as you know, which can get a little bit over the top at times. But for me, I just tried to show up early, stay late, work harder than everybody else, and just be committed to excellence in the little things and the big things.
yeah.
And hopefully that rubbed off on some people the right way. But yeah, let's dive in a little further here to what leadership is. But first, before we get there, we want to talk about what leadership is not.
Yeah.
So a lot of us as leaders, whether we're trying to lead a team, lead our family, lead our school, our organization, a business, we all know we want to be better leaders, but most of us don't struggle because of lack of effort or lack of just desire, but we struggle for lack of knowledge about what leadership actually is. So we put together a list, guys, of some common leadership myths if we want to help bust for you. We have 5 of them listed here. And the first one, guys, we want to talk about leadership is not a title or position. Okay, I'll say that again. Leadership is not a title, it's not a position. So a lot of people think that, hey, I've either got to be a coach, I've got to be a captain, I've got to be a CEO, an owner of a company to be a leader. But that's actually just not true. Leadership is so much different than that. It's the opportunity, as we'll dive in later, to think about the influence and impact you have on other people. So you don't have to have a specific title, a specific position, a specific label put on you to be a leader. So that's our first one. Mike, you got the second one here?
Yeah, I want to just touch on that too quick before we jump to number 2 is we talk so much about identity, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of our identity as athletes, people that want to have influence, is that regardless of what position you're in, right, you can see yourself as a leader. Um, and once you do that, you're going to see these doors open, these opportunities come for you where even if you don't have that title, where you can step into that role and actually lead people in a meaningful way. So I think identity is a big part of that. But number 2 here, the second myth here is leadership does not require you to be a charismatic leader or a great speaker. So you, as leaders, you don't always have to make a speech, the best speech, right? Like it's not always on you to be the vocal guy. Um, what I will say is that at times, and this was a big learning moment for me, that just because we don't have to be a vocal leader doesn't mean that we can always stay inside our comfort zone. So there's going to be times where we do have to step in and say the right things at the right time. Um, but to be a leader, you don't have to be the one that makes the big speech that, is the rah guy from the dugout or the bench or whatever it is, right? You can be a more quiet leader. But again, like I don't want that to lead you to say, hey, I can stay inside my comfort zone. I don't have to speak at all. So for me, like I am somebody who is way more comfortable kind of in the background and not speaking, not being the most vocal person on the field or the bench or wherever it is. But for me as a young player, and I remember this kind of goes to the influence of a coach playing soccer. And I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old, somewhere in that range. And I was our sweeper. So I was the last line of defense. And I had the role of actually, commanding our other defensive players when to move up and back on the field. So I had to learn to use my voice at a very young age. Um, and I was challenged by my coach to actually be able to step into that role and be able to fulfill that role. And while I wasn't comfortable as like a charismatic speaker, especially as 11 or 12-year old, I was able to use my voice in the right at the right time in the right way. So again, leadership does not require you to be a great speaker, but just because that's true doesn't mean that we can stay put in our comfort zone and remain there, right?
Yep, that's good insight there. Our third one here, guys, this kind of speaks to identity, like Mike was talking about with number 1. But a lot of people think that you are either born a leader or you're not born a leader. So the myth here is that you have to be born a leader. That has to be part of your DNA, your genome, like who you have been created to be. That's just completely not true. It's completely false. Leadership is a skill, just like anything else. It can be learned, it can be developed, it can be trained. If you want to be a great leader, you can be a great leader. It starts with desire, and then it starts with learning the right things and then putting them into practice, being okay with failing at them, and then growing and learning from each opportunity you have in front of you. So if you don't feel like you're a leader right now, or don't feel like you were born with that as a gift or a calling or from a young age, that is perfectly fine and perfectly okay. Leadership is something you can grow into.
Yeah, that I mean, that goes to my story that I just kind of talked about a little bit, right? I didn't feel like I was born into that role where I was very comfortable being vocal in that way. But when you're exposed to these opportunities or these little moments that challenge you, you have to step through that door and walk into that opportunity, um, and 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 move in that direction, right? So I think that's a good point to make. Leadership, number four, leadership is not about you, right? Leadership is not about you. So leadership, if you're in a position of leadership, should not be a self-serving role, right? So as leaders, you are here to serve other people, and we'll get into that more. But it is not about you. It is not about what you can take from this situation or take from this team or how you can move yourself up through the ranks. It's about how you can serve other people faithfully and serve your team faithfully and make your team better along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking to that context a little bit leads us to number five. Leadership is not only for the best players. Sometimes we think about being an athlete that only the best player on the team or the captain of the team can become a leader. But
Mhm.
that's not true. Anybody can become a leader if they want to steward their influence, they want to make an impact on their teammates and people around them. So after I was drafted by the Braves in 2011, I go to my first spring training in 2012. I didn't get invited to Major League Camp, but I was that young kid who got invited to basically back up most of the games for the Major League team. So I'd go there, I'd show up early, I'd shag batting practice, I'd get my ground balls when the big leaguers were, done with their reps and routine. I remember specifically one day I was in the outfield, I was shagging, I'd already got my ground ball work, and I just went out to shag balls until it was my turn to hit. And I remember this guy, and his name was Martin Prado. He played in the big leagues for a long time. He was a great player, but he wasn't the best player on the team. And that team was kind of loaded. The 2012 Atlanta Braves, they had Chipper Jones, a Hall of Famer, Freddie Freeman, who's going to be a future Hall of Famer, still doing it. Craig Kimbrell was probably going to be a Hall of Fame closer. It's just so many guys on that team. Martin was a good player, but he wasn't the best player on that team. But he was the only guy who went out of his way, took time out of his day, out of his routine pregame. He finished his batting practice. He ran his bases. He got his base running reps in. He put his stuff down and he made it a point to come out to the outfield that day. And he was walking straight towards me. I was kind of like looking around, doing one of these. If you're watching on YouTube, like, is this guy walking like towards me? Like, I've never met him. I'm this young kid just out of college. And he walked straight up to me, put his hand out, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Martine. Nice to meet you. What's your name?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm Nick. I know who you are, obviously. Like, great to meet you." And he just stood next to me for like 5 minutes and he shagged balls with me, and that made a humongous impact on me. And that carried with me as a leadership example for me the rest of my life that, hey, you know what? If I'm not the best player on my team, I still have an opportunity to make an impact in someone's day. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It can take 5 minutes out of my day to just go ask somebody, their name, where they're from, who they are, and just pour into them and build a relationship and build that trust. So Martine and I actually ended up getting traded together the next year to Arizona. I was still in the minor leagues. He was in the big leagues. But the next year after that, 2014, I ended up getting called up and we got to be teammates on the same team. And true to his character, he didn't change. He was still leading people and doing it at a high level when we got to play together in Arizona, too. So amazing leader. Hopefully, I'll get him to be a guest on this podcast at some point down the road and see if he remembers that conversation. But yeah, he made a tremendous impact on me, even though he wasn't the best player on the team.
Yeah, super cool story. I mean, I think that speaks to how we always have opportunities to be leaders, right? You don't have to be the best player of the team, but you always have that opportunity if you're intentional about it to go out of your way and help somebody. So I want to ask you too, we talk about serving others as part of leadership, right? Like in what way do you feel like that served you as an athlete, as a person, as a human being? Like how did that simple act of him going up to you serve you and serve your interests and just make your experience that day even a little bit better?
Oh, it was life changing. For me being that young player, I was, not comfortable in that environment. I wasn't a big leaguer yet. I just got drafted from college 6 months prior, whatever it was. And he just kind of diffused some of that nervous tension and energy. And he just made me feel super comfortable and allowed me to step into that environment. And, I would have more games that spring where I was backing up, and he'd always say, "Hey, Nick, how you doing? Come on over here. Let me show you something." He
Mhm.
gave me one of his bats at one point. So he just made the environment a lot easier for me to be myself and to be able to go out and compete and help the team when called upon. And that's kind of just the role, right? As a leaders, we're going to dive into this later, but we want to help unlock people's potential. We
Yeah.
want to create an environment where people can flourish and be the best versions of themselves. So, yeah, he made a huge impact on me that day, and which carried forward the rest of that spring training and then, the entirety of my major league career.
Yeah. Awesome. So leaders out there, take note, like simple things that you guys can do on a daily basis to really have impact down the road. And, for you, that helped form you, Nick, right, as a leader. So now you're affecting other people's, and this one simple act can cast this huge net of influence down the road. We talk about legacy all the time. I think leadership speaks to that as well. But as we transition here, right, those were the myths that we wanted to debunk, right? What leadership is not. Let's now get into some leadership definitions of what leadership actually is.
Quick break from today's episode. So here's the truth. We've done the research, and only 5.1% of elite athletes and coaches are actually training their mind on a daily basis. That is exactly why we built our 7-pillar mindset training app. To join our 7-pillar community and start training your mind, leadership, and performance today, subscribe to our one-of-a-kind training app at app.7pillar.co/memberships. You'll be joining athletes, coaches, and leaders seeking to become the best versions of themselves, both on and off the field. For 10% off your first year, use code PODCAST10 at checkout. All right, now back to today's episode.
We've been doing some background work on this and some research on, the top minds in leadership today and all the way back to 2,000 years ago. So we want to run through this list, some really good leadership definitions to kind of get a really good idea of what leadership is, and then we're going to distill it down a little bit more to kind of put our own touch on it. So John C. Maxwell, he's a best-selling leadership author, speaker, and coach. He sold 35 million books across 50 languages. So this guy's lived and breathed leadership his whole life. He defines leadership as influence. He says nothing more, nothing less. So leadership simply is influence. The next guy here, Warren Bennis. He's an organizational consultant and professor who's considered the pioneer of modern day leadership. Okay, he defines leadership as the capacity to translate vision into reality. So the capacity to translate vision into reality. Another one here, Simon Sinek. He's a British author, speaker, and consultant. He defines leadership in this way. Leadership is not about being in charge, right? We talked about that. It is about taking care of those in your charge, okay? Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge, okay? Two more here. Bill Bradley. He's a former NBA player turned politician. He defines leadership in the following way. Leadership is unlocking people's potential to become better. Okay, and this is the last one here. This is Jesus saying in Matthew 20:26, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. So we just went through 5 very, very influential speakers, teachers on leadership. And we want to take all of these pieces and kind of work them into a really good working definition. We'll move forward from there.
Yeah, so at 7-pillar, leadership is a really important thing to us. We think that influence is something to be stewarded. We all have the opportunity to become great leaders, to leave a real legacy in this life. No matter what you do, you have to become a great leader. So to summarize all these definitions and create our own working definition for 7-pillar, we have it as follows here. So leadership is intentionally using your influence to serve others, unlock potential, and unite people around a shared mission. Okay, so one more time here. Leadership is intentionally using your influence to serve others, unlock potential, and unite people around a shared mission. So it's come down to 4 different parts, and we'll get into them later. But essentially, we have influence, we're called to serve, we're called to unlock people's potential, and then we're called to unite people around a shared mission. So leadership can be impactful one-to-one, but in the scope of an entire team, an organization, a family, the biggest part of it is gathering and galvanizing and creating unity around, hey, where are we going? What do we want to become? Who do we want to become together? And then great leaders can extract that and pull that out of people over time. So we want to get practical with this too. Mike, as an athlete, like how would you say the best way to live out, being a great leader as an athlete? Where does that start?
Yeah. So obviously we've talked about this. All of us are going to be in different roles at different times. We're going to be athletes, coaches, leaders in different positions, whether it's business, family, etc. So practically speaking, as an athlete, there's four things that we really want to lean into to become the best leaders that we can. So number one here is we want to serve faithfully in our role. Serve faithfully in our role. So as leaders, we don't have to be someone that we're not, right? We touch on this. We don't have to be the best player on the team. We don't have to be the most vocal guy. All we have to do is lean into our role, be faithful with our role. And as we do that, the doors will open up to connect with other people, to serve other people, to faithfully, carry out our tasks that we have as part of the team. So that's number one, serve faithfully in your role. Number two, and this is my favorite, I think this is one of the most important ones. It's certainly been impactful for me. But number two is encourage and build up your teammates. Encourage and build up your teammates. So I want to dive into Ephesians 4:29 right now. It says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." So I want to touch on here, and Ephesians talks about this, but the importance of our words, the importance of our speech. Our speech can either build people up, take people with us on the mission, galvanize that support, like unite people on that mission, or it can tear people down. It can disconnect people. It can move people out of our mission. So for me, our words are probably the strongest tool for either bringing people along with us, right? To really, diving into that role as a leader, or words can be the thing that separates us more than anything else. And so as we think about this in a team context, right? We've all been around these athletes, and it's been me at times too, but people that complain, people that drain energy from the team and the mission and what we're trying to do that day, right? Like you said before, as leaders, we're trying to bring people along and unite people along around a mission. And so when we have our words kind of detracting from that mission, detracting from speaking really good identity into people, right? Then we're not fulfilling that definition of leadership. So again, words are super important for me. This is probably the most impactful one for people that have spoken encouragement to me, and then for the results that I've seen in speaking encouragement to other people. So number three here is another good one: willingness to listen and teach. Willingness to listen and teach. I think as leaders we have to do both, right? We have to be able to listen to other people, and we have to be able to teach, even if we're just athletes, right? So for you, bringing up that example of you being the senior and me being the sophomore, you were able to not only lead by example on how you carry your business, but you teaching me how to play elite shortstop, you teaching me what it meant to have composure and commitment as a pitcher, commitment in the weight room, and doing all of these things. So obviously, you still had a lot to learn in that role, in that position. But as someone who is in a role of influence, right, you were able to teach others around you. And I think as athletes too, and there is some nuance around this, right? We have to have some feel with it. But as athletes, like, we have to be able to step into the role of teaching our teammates certain points as well. We can't, remain and live in our bubble and expect other people to do that. If we are sold out to the team's mission, then we're going to try to make everyone as good as possible around us. And that means, hey, teaching other people your strengths, teaching other people what you've learned, and then passing it along. So
Yeah.
big ones.
Yeah. I just want to jump in there. It doesn't have to be it shouldn't be in an arrogant way. It doesn't have to mean like, hey, I'm great at this, you guys all have to do it
Yeah.
the way I'm doing it. But if you see someone struggling in a certain area, you may not struggle in the same area they struggle in. And it goes both ways to be able to learn from someone else and then be able to teach in that area too. So, I could be good at, playing shortstop. Someone else could be good at stealing bases, and we could get together. We can encourage each other, share things that we're learning, things we're seeing, perspectives we have. I think that's what you're talking about there, but it's definitely not like, hey, I've got it all figured out. Now I'm going to tell you what to do. So just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, that's a good point there. I think that dovetails nicely into the fourth point here, which is we want to have a team first mentality. As athletes, if we're all about us, right, we're serving ourselves and our stat line and where we're going next year or our potential down the road, we're missing the here and now. We're not living into that team mission. So we have to have a team first mentality. Philippians 2:4 says this: "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of the others." Okay, so again, like talking about that team context, right? You are not the most important person. The team is the most important. So if we're serving the team, if we're serving other people, we're going to be really living into that leadership role. We're going to be bringing people along. We're going to be adhering and pursuing that mission on a daily basis. And it really is going to bring, if we have that mentality, if we have that mindset, we're going to bring so much more energy to the team. And the guys that don't, the leaders that don't, they actually drain the energy from the team, right? It's like that creates a sour culture where, nobody wants to show up to the field. Nobody wants to put in work. There's all this disconnect. So if we have that team first mentality, we're going to be leading in the right way.
Yeah, I love your point about energy. I think energy is often talked about in certain scopes of how you carry yourself, but in the dynamics of a team, it's really important. And I've had plenty of people ask me since I retired from playing, "Hey, what are you going to do? You're going to coach? You're going to get a front office role?"
Mhm.
And I just think about it sometimes, and having a young family, I'm not sure I want to get back in full time. But if I were ever to get into a front office role, one of the things I've really thought about and I paid attention to as a player, the clubhouse dynamics, the dynamics of a roster and how you construct that. So what I always say is if I were to ever to construct a roster, you obviously have to look at talent and filling positional needs and different things like that. But you also have to look at personalities. You can't just have all the same type of personality. I've been on teams like that where everyone is this quiet to themselves, respectful. They're not bad qualities, but they don't bring a lot of energy to the table. And especially a sport like baseball and at the highest level in the big leagues, it's 162. It's every single day and it gets mundane and repetitive and you need someone to bring the energy every day. So as a GM, I would really target that, make sure my team is constructed with 2 or 3 players and people who can bring that type of energy and it just fits their personality. So in Arizona, we had a guy who was just like that. His name was David Peralta, unbelievable player. We got to play together for 10 years. He had an amazing story. He was a former pitcher, signed internationally by the Cardinals out of Venezuela when he was like 16 or 17. Ended up blowing out his shoulder a couple different times, had surgery, just couldn't pitch anymore. But he loved the game, wanted to keep going, and he wanted to find a way to get back into it. So he said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to turn into a hitter." And his dad was like, "All right, let's go. Let's do it." So he started to hit, finally was able to play some winter ball and got signed to an independent league team. Played independent ball for a while and just was crushing it. The Diamondbacks signed him out of there. In less than a year's time, he was actually in the big leagues and he
Wow.
never looked back. So unbelievable story, just unbelievable person, athlete mindset. But what I think he did better than anybody else I ever played with was just to bring that energy to the team, to the organization, to the clubhouse each and every day. So just knowing that like he was all about the team, he brought that energy, he helped lift people who are having a bad day, who are fatigued and drained that day. And it was just so contagious. So a lot of practical things, guys, we can do as an athlete to become a better leader. Thinking about the coach now, Mike, right? We're serving athletes, we're serving coaches. You've been a coach professionally at the high school level, coaching youth. You've coached at all different levels now. And me transitioning into being a youth coach, this is just on my mind a lot now. So great leadership for a coach looks like building trust. It looks like building relationships. It looks like teaching and just being invested in your athletes, their success both on and off the field, and creating an environment and culture where everyone can flourish and succeed. So that's where it starts. It starts with building that trust, building that relationship with the people that you're leading, your other coaches that are on your staff, the athletes that are within your care. And then from there, it's like, okay, now that you built the trust and the relationship, you have a voice to speak into their lives. So we also have to set the standard, right? As coaches, if we're saying one thing, but we're not living it out, we're not walking the walk, it's going to be really difficult for the message that we're trying to convey to our athletes and our team to be bought into. So we have to set the standard of service. So some little things, right? You can help pick up the balls. You can help keep the facility clean. You can have these meaningful conversations with everyone that take, like Martin Prado had with me, that take less than 5 minutes time. You need to help your athletes also be prepared physically and mentally. So that's just another way to serve them. Another thing here too, as a coach, to become a better leader, you have to be aware of when your athletes step into performance-based identity. and recognize the signs. It's the frustration, it's the anger, it's the anxiety, it's the isolation. It's just the nervousness of the moment where people can't play free and get into the zone. So
Yeah.
recognizing that first and then helping unlock them and move away from that performance-based identity and just building them up and teaching them, hey, you're a part of this team. We need you. We value you. Your last performance, last game, last at bat, that doesn't have an impact on who you are and the value you bring to this team. So just helping people to step out of that performance-based identity is huge. Another thing here is talking about belief. Players have to believe that you're on your side and they have to believe that you believe in them. So just create that belief and just building them up like, hey, let's go. You got this. Here we go. Like, I trust you. You know, your name's in the lineup for a reason. That type of belief just really helps people who are on the fence, right? Because we all been there personally ourselves, and we know athletes who struggle with confidence and self-belief issues. So as a coach, the way we can serve and help practically is just instilling that belief and that confidence in the players that we're serving. So Mike, I know you played for a long time. You played, multiple sports growing up. You played professionally for a long time. Give me an example of a coach who really instilled and helped you believe in yourself as an athlete.
Yeah, thinking about this, I mean, I think the most impactful one, a time where a coach instilled belief in me was actually high school basketball. And I was kind of more like a role player, high school basketball. We had a good team. I think we had 8 seniors on the team that year when I was a senior. So we had played with each other for a long time. But I just kind of saw myself as like a role player, a guy that would play really good defense. I would be intense. I would go all out, like that kind of like non-skill, non-basketball skill player that was, brought energy to the team really. And we had a coach come in my junior year. Again, I didn't really see myself as like an elite basketball player, ball handler, shooter, etc. But really, this is kind of like into my senior year where I wasn't taking shots, even if I was open, kind of around the perimeter. And he pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, like, what are you doing? Why you got an open shot? Why are you not shooting?" I was like, "Well, we got other guys on the team that are better shooters." And he's like, "No, you're open. You're going to take the shot." And I had really never thought of myself in that way as a shooter. Um, and so him just kind of like speaking that to me before I had become a really good shooter, I think was super powerful. And it like changed my mindset around like, okay, maybe if I really do work on this, I can get really good. And my senior year that year, I turned in from a guy that, was just kind of a role player, good defense, a lot of energy, to a guy that actually could shoot on the perimeter. And I brought a lot more value to the team. And so, that word, that encouragement, that him instilling that belief in me before I was actually good at the thing, I think was hugely important. It kind of got me to, really dive into that role and commit to that role a little bit more and see myself as a different type of player. And just speaking to the coach, I think that can go for any sport, for any role. Just again, speaking to that belief and saying, "Hey, like I believe in you. I know that you can do it. Let's find a way to figure this out together. Whether it's practice time, whether it's different technique, whatever it is. It's just like you're helping that player along the way." But it does come down to like the player believing that the coach is on their side. And just to speak to really quick about the players believing that the coach is on their side, is as coaches, we have to be interested in our players, not just as athletes, but I think as people first. And once they feel that, once they see that, that's when you can really build that trust. And again, you speaking into the instilling belief into the player, I think is going to pay even more dividends down the road when they do see that you care about them first and you do it, right?
Yeah, I'm laughing, not at what you said, but it made me think of a coach I had one time. It was actually a big league coach, manager that there was a lot of things I liked about him, and I don't want to, use a name and speak negatively, but he knew what to say. He knew the right things to do. He knew that asking, like you're saying, about how you're doing off the field is important. So he would ask questions about your family. But the reason I'm laughing, and all our teammates used to laugh about the same thing too, is he'd be like, "Hey, Nick, how you doing today? How's your family?" And then before I could even open my mouth to answer him and tell him how my family was doing, boom, he was already past me, 5 feet down the hallway, moving on to the next thing he had to do. So I'm just like, all right, like, I guess I'm going to move on, and it it has to be lived out. It has to be real. It has to be authentic. You have to actually care about your players.
Yeah.
You can't just say the right thing without actually following through on it. So just be somebody who cares about your athletes. I think that's the biggest thing. And then the last thing here for the coach is just learning how to create a contagious culture. Create that contagious culture. Create a place where your team shows up and everyone loves it there. Everyone wants to be there. They have fun. They push each other. They work hard. They're doing things collectively and united around that shared mission. So depending on what type of coach you are, you're going to have to learn how to do things a little bit differently. So for somebody like me who might be a little bit more intense and focus on the fundamentals, I have to be really intentional when I coach to bring fun into it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things I heard from a parent at the end of our last season in the spring here, youth baseball, was that their son rediscovered the joy for the game. And, that happens at all levels. Kids get burnt out, even pros get burnt out. They take it too seriously and they're not having fun when they show up to the field, when they show up to their sport. So as a coach, it's on you to create a practice, a game, a clubhouse environment that is fun, that is contagious, that people want to be a part of. So think about the type of coach that you are and what you gravitate towards naturally, and then what you probably need to add more of. So if you're a guy who's just super fun and loves to be there with the guys, but you're kind of missing out on, hey, pushing each other around, let's get better together and get after it at practice every day. Just understand what that balance needs to be and kind of bring in some of those elements that maybe don't come so naturally to you. So yeah, a lot of ways to get really practical, guys. And Mike, as we wrap up, just kind of summarize. I know we've got 4 kind of main points just based on our definition here. Can you hit everyone here with just the kind of the definition again and what those 4 main points are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the overall theme that we're talking about, guys, is influence, right? It's influence. So what is it, and how do we steward influence well? We have to make sure that, no matter who we are or no matter what role we're in, we are having an influence on our teammates, on our team, on the direction that our team is going. So I want you to see yourself as a leader first, stepping into that role regardless of the position that you're in, right? And then understand what type of influence that you're having on your teammates and your team as a whole. The next piece here, after the overall theme, is serve. As leaders, we have to serve other people. That's what it comes down to. If we're not serving other people, if we're focused on ourselves, we are not going to be good leaders. The next one here is unlock. So we have to unlock potential of our teammates and the people around us, both on and off the field. Okay, so we have to encourage the best. We have to bring the best out of other people. The last one here is unite. So we're going to cast vision and change culture. This is we're galvanizing people around a common mission, a common vision, around a common pursuit, and saying, hey, we are going all in on this. Everyone come along with me. All right, and those are the 4 things. So overall theme is influence, and we're going to serve, we're going to unlock, and we're going to unite.
Yeah, great. Love those points. And just to bring it back to the definition, we obviously talked about the myths about what leadership is not, and then we kind of defined at a high level some experts in the field of leadership and what they say leadership is. And then we kind of summarized all of them and built our own 7-pillar definition of leadership. So we say leadership is intentionally using your influence to serve others, unlock potential, and unite people around a shared mission. So every one of our podcast guys, we're committed to this. We're going to wrap up in the same way. We want to be not only hearers of the word, right? Hearers of the word of God, but hearers of a podcast, a book you're listening to, a conversation you have. We want to teach you guys to take action and take massive action that's going to actually improve your life. So we don't want to just hear the podcast. We want to do what the podcast is saying to do. So we're challenging all of you guys this week to identify one person on your team, one person that you can serve in a unique way and bring that element of service into your leadership. Think about it like this. So your goal should make an intentional investment in another human being's life. So it should help them off the field. It should help them on the field. They should feel like Martin Prado made me feel. Yeah. They should feel different. They should feel encouraged. They should feel empowered and valuable. So a couple questions to ask yourself as you're thinking about who to identify and how you're going to serve them. What act of service would best serve that person or your team? Who needs some encouragement right now in this season? Who needs a specific act of service or help with something? That could be a skill, that could be, anything that they just need some help with. And one more here. Is there anyone that feels left out, excluded, isolated that you could really be intentional about connecting with? So once you identify the need and the person, pick a specific time and just commit to it and just go out there and serve that person. And in order to become a great leader, guys, you have to take these things seriously, understand what leadership is not, and then understand what leadership is, and then go out and become a leader that makes a great impact.
Thank you for tuning in with us today. If this episode brought you value, please share it with someone in your circle who needs to hear this message. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode, and don't forget to leave a rating and review. Every share, follow, and review helps us reach more people and make a greater impact. Because at the end of the day, this is about more than content. It's about growth, purpose, and stepping fully into who you were created to be.